Chapter 1. The Ancient Problem of Modern Disrespect. We have all encountered someone who seems to drain the life out of a room. You know the type of person. They make subtle, cutting remarks. They cross your boundaries and then act like you are the one being unreasonable. They thrive on drama, chaos, and emotional reactions. Today, we often label these individuals as toxic, but this is not a new phenomenon. Human nature has not changed in thousands of years. The ancient philosophers of Greece and Rome dealt with the exact same personalities, the same passive aggression, and the same blatant disrespect. When we read the personal diaries of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a book we now call Meditations, we see the most powerful man in the world struggling with the same annoying, frustrating people you deal with today. He woke up every morning knowing he would face people who were arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and rude. Yet, he did not let them destroy his peace. He developed a mental fortress. The problem with disrespect is not the action of the other person, but how we process it. When someone disrespects you, your immediate instinct is to fight back, to defend your honor, or to shrink away and hurt. Both of these reactions give the toxic person exactly what they want. They want to control your emotional state. They want to prove that they have power over you. If they can make you angry, they win. If they can make you sad, they win. Stoicism offers a completely different approach. It teaches us a method to completely neutralize this dynamic. You are about to learn the single shift in mindset and action that will make toxic people realize they cannot play their games with you. Chapter 2. The core lesson of Epictetus and the illusion of control. To understand how to stop disrespect permanently, we must look at the teachings of Epictetus. He was a man who spent his early life as a slave. He endured physical abuse, humiliation, and a complete lack of legal rights. Yet, he became one of the most respected philosophers in history because he realized a fundamental truth about human existence. He taught that there are things we can control and things we cannot control. You cannot control what another person says to you. You cannot control their tone of voice, their facial expressions, or the twisted logic they use to justify their behavior. If you spend your life trying to manage the opinions and actions of toxic people, you will live a life of endless anxiety and frustration. You are handing the keys to your happiness to someone who does not even care about you. Epictetus taught that your power lies solely in your own judgments, your own desires, and your own responses. When a toxic person throws an insult your way, they are offering you a terrible gift. If you get upset, you have accepted the gift. You have taken their words, internalized them, and allowed them to poison your mind. But what happens if you refuse the gift? What happens if you look at their words as mere sounds vibrating in the air? According to the Stoic texts, if you do not agree with the insult has no power. The disrespect only becomes real the moment you believe it matters. This brings us to the fundamental realization. Toxic people do not respect boundaries because they are used to people breaking their own boundaries. They are used to people getting emotional, arguing, and eventually giving in. To stop the cycle of disrespect, you must stop participating in the game. You must step outside the emotional arena. Chapter 3. The Power of the Pause and Seneca's Antidote to Anger. Before you can take the definitive action that stops toxic people in their tracks, you have to master your own internal reactions. Seneca, a prominent Roman Stoic and advisor to the Emperor Nero, wrote extensively about the destructive nature of anger. He dealt with a highly unstable and dangerous ruler, so he understood the absolute necessity of keeping a cool head under intense pressure. Seneca believed that anger is a temporary madness. When someone disrespects you, the rush of adrenaline and the desire for retaliation is overwhelming. But Seneca advises us to insert a pause between the trigger and the response. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. When the toxic person makes their move, your first action is to do absolutely nothing. You do not sigh. You do not roll your eyes. You do not snap back. You simply breathe and observe. In that brief pause, you reclaim your rationality. You remind yourself that this person's behavior is a reflection of their own flawed character, not your worth. They are acting out of insecurity, a need for control, or perhaps a lack of emotional maturity. Why should you let someone with such a disordered mind dictate your emotional state? By pausing, you deny them the immediate gratification of a reaction. You break the cause and effect loop they rely on. This pause is deeply unsettling to a toxic individual. They expect resistance. They expect you to defend yourself, which gives them more material to work with. When they are met with silence and a calm, unbothered demeanor, they suddenly find themselves standing on unstable ground. The energy they threw at you hits a solid wall and bounces right back to them. Chapter 4. The single action to establish unbreakable respect. Now we reach the core of the strategy. The single action you must take to ensure a toxic person never disrespects you again is a combination of radical emotional withdrawal and a firm, undeniable statement of reality. You only need to do this once, with absolute conviction, for it to change the dynamic forever. When the disrespect occurs, and you have taken your stoic pause, you look the person directly in the eyes. You do not glare, and you do not look away. You maintain a neutral, relaxed expression. Then, you state clearly and simply that you will not engage in this type of interaction. You do not explain yourself. You do not justify your feelings. You do not ask for an apology. You simply state the boundary as an objective fact of the universe. For instance, you might say calmly that you do not participate in conversations that involve raising voices or subtle insults. You state that you will be walking away, and they can speak to you again when they are ready to communicate respectfully. And then, you must physically remove yourself from the situation. You turn around and you leave. This is not a dramatic exit. It is not a punishment. It is a logical consequence of their behavior. You are demonstrating, not just saying, that your peace of mind is not up for negotiation. The crucial element here is the complete lack of emotion in your delivery. If you walk away angry, slamming doors and shouting, they still win. They know they got to you. If you walk away with the calm indifference of someone stepping over a puddle on the sidewalk, you strip them of all their power. You do this once. You draw the line in the sand with absolute clarity. The toxic person is now faced with a reality they cannot manipulate. They cannot argue with someone who refuses to fight. They cannot manipulate someone who is completely detached from the outcome. Chapter 5. The Inner Citadel of Marcus Aurelius. Once you have taken this action, you will likely face an extinction burst. The toxic person might escalate their behavior briefly. They might try to guilt trip you, spread rumors, or act the victim. This is where the concept of the inner citadel comes into play, a frequent theme in the writings of Marcus Aurelius. The emperor viewed his mind as an impregnable fortress. The outside world could rage, barbarians could attack the borders of the empire, and politicians could plot against him. But inside his mind, there was total tranquility. He wrote that nothing outside your mind can harm you unless you allow it to. The actions of the toxic person after you set your boundary are entirely outside of your control. Therefore, they are outside of your concern. When they try to provoke you again, you treat them like a natural phenomenon. If it rains, you do not yell at the clouds. You simply open an umbrella. If the toxic person tries their old tricks, you simply observe them as you would a passing storm. You recognize that their behavior is a predictable pattern, driven by their own internal chaos. You do not take it personally because it has nothing to do with you. You retreat to your inner citadel. You focus on your own virtues. Are you acting with justice? Are you maintaining your wisdom? Are you exercising temperance? If you are living in accordance with your own values, the noise created by a disrespectful person is entirely irrelevant. You watch their attempts to break your peace with a sense of mild curiosity, completely detached from the outcome. Chapter 6. The Shield of Radical Acceptance. A major part of the Stoic philosophy involves seeing the world exactly as it is, without sugarcoating it and without wishing it were different. This is often related to the concept of accepting your fate. When dealing with difficult people, this means radically accepting that toxic individuals exist and they will behave toxically. Many of us suffer because we harbor the secret hope that we can change the toxic person. We think that if we just explain things clearly enough, or if we love them hard enough, they will suddenly become respectful, emotionally intelligent human beings. Stoicism demands that we drop this delusion immediately. In the texts, the philosophers remind us that expecting a bad person not to do bad things is like expecting a fig tree not to produce figs. It is their nature. When you accept that a disrespectful person is simply acting according to their flawed nature, you stop feeling betrayed when they act out. You stop being surprised. And most importantly, you stop wasting your valuable energy trying to fix them. This radical acceptance is a massive shield against disrespect. When they insult you, you internally acknowledge that this is exactly what a person of their character does. It is not a reflection on you. It is an undeniable symptom of their own mental state. You can even cultivate a sense of pity for them. They have to live inside a mind that is constantly agitated, bitter, and focused on tearing others down. You, on the other hand, have the freedom to walk away and enjoy your peace. Chapter 7. The Long-Term Strategy of Indifference. The ultimate goal of this Stoic practice is to reach a state of complete emotional indifference toward the toxic person's behavior. This does not mean you are cold or unfeeling toward humanity. It means you reserve your emotional energy for the people and things that truly matter. In the ancient schools of philosophy, they talked about things being preferred or dispreferred indifference. It is preferred that people treat you with kindness and respect. Life is certainly more pleasant that way. But it is not strictly necessary for your happiness or your moral character. If someone treats you poorly, it is a dispreferred situation. But it cannot stop you from being a good, virtuous person. Once you have executed the single action of calmly stating your boundary and withdrawing your emotional participation, you maintain this stance of indifference forever. You become a gray rock. When you must interact with them, you give them nothing to hold on to. Your answers are brief, factual, and completely devoid of emotional hooks. You do not smile excessively to appease them, and you do not frown to show your displeasure. You simply exist in their presence with the solid, immovable energy of a mountain. Over time, the toxic person will realize that trying to disrespect you is a waste of their time. They are looking for a spark to start a fire, and you have become made of stone. They will eventually move on to easier targets because you no longer provide the psychological payoff they crave. You have trained them, through your lack of reaction, that you are off limits. Chapter 8. Building your character through adversity. The Stoics did not view difficult people as a curse. They viewed them as training partners. A wrestler cannot get stronger without a tough opponent. In the same way, you cannot develop profound patience, resilience, and emotional control without encountering people who test those virtues. Every time you face a toxic person and successfully maintain your calm, you are building your character. You are actively practicing the philosophy. When you read the ancient books, you realize that the authors were not sitting in quiet, peaceful rooms dreaming up theories. They were in the middle of chaotic courts, dealing with treason, dealing with exile, and dealing with incredibly difficult personalities. They forged their wisdom in the fire of real human interaction. So, when you are faced with disrespect, shift your perspective. Instead of feeling victimized, see it as an opportunity. This person is giving you a chance to practice the dichotomy of control. They are giving you a chance to practice the pause. They are testing the walls of your inner citadel. Do not hate them for it. Use them to become stronger. By applying these principles, You do not just survive interactions with toxic people, you transcend them. You elevate yourself to a level of psychological maturity that they cannot even comprehend. You reclaim your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. And you do it all through the quiet, unstoppable power of your own focused will. The respect you desire from the world must first be generated from within yourself. Once you respect your own boundaries enough to enforce them without anger, the world has no choice but to follow suit.